The sun beat down on JFK's tarmac, heat shimmering off the painted lines. Marcus DeLuca barely had time to step toward the boarding stairs before a shadow loomed in front of him. A firm hand clamped the back of his neck, forcing his face toward the gritty pavement. "People like you don't walk here," Darius Brown's voice carried over the idle roar of a waiting jet. Cameras lifted from the crowd beyond the fence, a few passengers stopped mid-step, whispering. Marcus's palms pressed against the hot concrete, the tang of jet fuel in his throat. He didn't strain against the hold, just breathed in slow, measured beats, eyes fixed on the polished boots in front of him. Darius leaned closer, his badge glinting. "Look down, keep quiet, and maybe you'll get off easy." Marcus's jaw shifted just enough to answer, "Careful where you put me. You might not like what's under your feet." The murmur in the watching crowd swelled, but no one moved. What happened next would cut through the noise of the entire terminal. Darius kept his grip firm, the pressure meant to humiliate more than restrain. "You think money buys you a free pass through restricted zones?" he sneered, his voice pitched for the onlookers. Marcus could hear the faint clicks of phone cameras, each one sealing the moment in digital amber. The man's tone wasn't just about security protocol, it carried an edge sharpened by something older, heavier. "You step where you don't belong, you get put back in your place." The words landed harder than the shove. Marcus lifted his gaze just enough to see the reflection of his own face in the black visor of Darius's sunglasses. That reflection was calm, but his fingers curled slightly, brushing the cool metal of the ring on his hand, a heavy gold band etched with a crest most people wouldn't recognize. Most, but not all. Somewhere behind the chain-link fence, a pilot in a crisp uniform paused mid-conversation, his eyes narrowing. "You're blocking an outbound crew member," the pilot called, but Darius didn't look up. Marcus tilted his head slightly, as if studying the weave of the tarmac's surface. He could feel the air shift, the way situations do when the wrong person tries to assert control over the right one. Somewhere in the terminal, boarding announcements continued, oblivious. But out here, the standoff had begun. The pilot's footsteps were deliberate as he crossed the painted line, his presence cutting through the stifling heat. "Officer Brown, you're out of line," he said, voice steady but carrying the kind of authority that made ground crew turn their heads. Darius finally straightened, but his hand stayed planted between Marcus's shoulders. "This man's trespassing." End of story. Marcus rose slowly, brushing dust from his shirt, never breaking eye contact. "If you're going to accuse me, at least learn who you're talking to." The pilot's gaze dropped to Marcus's ring, his brow tightening. "You're DeLuca?" he asked under his breath. Darius smirked. "Whoever he is, he's about to miss his flight." Marcus's next words weren't loud, but they carried like a sudden drop in cabin pressure. "That's my plane. And the tarmac you're so proud of? My family's name is on the deeds." A ripple went through the watching crowd. One flight attendant's jaw dropped, a baggage handler froze mid-step. The pilot stepped between them now, his stance leaving no space for debate. "Release him. Now." Darius hesitated, reading the pilot's face, then the realization hit, his grip loosened. The crowd's whispers turned electric, and for the first time, Darius looked uncertain. Darius's hand fell away completely, but his jaw stayed tight. "If that's true, prove it," he challenged, though the edge in his voice had dulled. Marcus reached into his inside pocket, pulling out a sleek black card embossed with the same crest from his ring. He held it out without flinching. The pilot took one glance, then turned it toward Darius. "Parent company board member," he stated flatly. A low murmur swept through the onlookers. This wasn't just a passenger with a complaint, this was someone who could rewrite the airport's rules with a phone call. Darius's posture shifted, a mix of regret and stubborn pride battling in his expression. Marcus didn't smile or gloat, he simply stepped past him toward the boarding stairs. The pilot leaned in close to Darius, his words sharp but quiet. "You've got no idea how lucky you are he didn't make that call right here." Across the tarmac, phones lowered, but the energy didn't fade. By the time Marcus reached the first step, Darius was still rooted to the spot, the weight of what had almost happened pressing down heavier than the summer heat. The crowd knew they'd just witnessed a reversal few would ever see in person. Inside the cabin, Marcus paused at the threshold, his hand resting on the polished frame of the doorway. He turned just enough to meet Darius's eyes across the tarmac. "I don't need you fired," he said, his voice even, "I need you to see what you almost destroyed." The pilot, still standing between them, caught the weight of those words. Later that week, Darius would walk into a conference room, not as an officer on duty, but as a reluctant attendee of a diversity and equity program personally funded by the DeLuca family. Marcus never mentioned the incident again, but the story moved through the airport like jet fuel on wind, invisible yet impossible to ignore. Some victories come without raising a voice or demanding a reckoning on the spot. They settle in slowly, like the hum of engines after takeoff, reminding everyone who was there that power isn't always about the grip you have, it's about what you choose to release. True strength is not about how loud you can be or how quickly you can strike back when you're wronged. It's about the discipline to stay calm in the heat of humiliation, the courage to stand your ground without letting anger take the lead, and the wisdom to use your position to spark change that lasts far beyond the moment. On that tarmac, Marcus had every reason to lash out, the shove toward the pavement, the eyes of strangers watching, the words meant to strip away his worth. In a single moment, he could have chosen to make the scene explode. But instead, he did something far more powerful. He stayed measured, he stayed composed, and he let the truth about who he was do the talking. By doing so, he didn't just clear his own name, he made the man holding him accountable in a way that no public shouting match ever could. In life, we are all bound to face moments where someone tries to reduce us to less than we are, moments where prejudice, ignorance, or abuse of authority press down like a weight on our shoulders. The natural instinct is to push back hard and fast, to prove ourselves instantly. But the truth is, not all victories are meant to be won in that instant. Some of the most transformative wins are the ones that unfold slowly, when you allow time, perspective, and undeniable truth to do the work for you. Marcus understood that his real power wasn't in forcing a dramatic takedown, it was in holding himself with such quiet authority that the situation unraveled on its own, and the wrongdoer had no choice but to face the consequences. The greatest leaders know that sometimes you win more by stepping back than by stepping forward. They know that a single, controlled act can set change in motion, change that not only corrects the wrong but also leaves a lasting impression on everyone who witnesses it. Marcus's choice not to fire the officer on the spot, but instead ensure he confronted his own bias through real education, turned a heated moment into a turning point. Power isn't always about holding on tightly or showing your strength for everyone to see. Often, it's about knowing exactly when to let go, because letting go, when done with intention, can echo further, teach deeper, and heal more than any immediate act of retaliation ever could.